You're listening to the Appleton REIA podcast, a podcast dedicated to understanding the latest tips, tricks, and techniques to be successful in today's market of real estate investing. Appleton REIA podcast. Get ready. Here's the next episode. Hello, once again, people. That's plural, right? That's cool, right? Anyway, my name's Dan Alborn. Jackie, it's the Appleton REIA podcast. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Feeling it. This is going to be so fun today.
Yeah, you know, what I love about some of these podcasts is where we kind of take some of the common thoughts in real estate and flip it on its head. And we're going to do that exact thing today, Jackie, because what we're going to talk about in today's podcast is price doesn't matter.
What?
Now, I know this is audio, and if I was putting it in print, I'd put that little sign next to it to just like, there's a little dot, say dot, dot, dot. Someone's got to be motivated, right? But today we're going to really talk about, at the end of the day, if you handle your seller conversations correctly and they truly are motivated to sell, you're going to get more deals than other people, and you're going to get them for less than what you would pay normally.
And we can prove it.
And we're going to talk about that because we have stories for days. So buckle yourself in, get ready to take some notes, get ready for some knowledge bombs in your ear holes. We are going to bring it today on the Appleton REIA podcast. But this all came about because at the last REIA meeting, I was talking to another investor. Yeah. And we were going back and forth about a situation, and he was just talking to me about how he had a good conversation with someone, and he got a great deal. And I said, you know what? Price didn't even matter, did it? It's like, so no, it didn't. And that's the secret sauce in this, guys, is that it comes down to relationships.
It does.
English is my first language, by the way. And that's really where I think most people miss out, because the average investor, that's not what they do. What is their model? I mean, it's typical.
You got to get it as cheap as you can. It's got to, but the people want to get as much as they can, which is true, 100%, right?
Yep.
But like you alluded to, it has to be a motivated seller. And that's how you can flush it out right away. Yep. If it's all about price for them, and like some realtor pulled a CMA and said they can get X amount and they really want to walk away with $70K in their pocket and they've got goals for that money, and the house is pretty much market ready. There's not a lot you can do, Dan. You're right. And that's kind of that caveat we were talking about, right? This isn't a one-trick pony that works for every situation. But there's a handful of people that we talk to that just, you talk to them and you're like, your heart goes out to them because they're in a real pickle, right? And they do need to sell them in every which way. I can't even tell you how many times I just sat there racking my brain. How can I help you? Right. How can I help you? There's this chasm in price, but there's got to be something we can do. And I mean, we did one just last year the same way, and we ended up buying it subject to the existing mortgage, because there just wasn't a way that we could pay points and interest and do all this stuff. And they had a really cheap interest rate on a VA line, a VA mortgage. And we're like, if we can take it subject to, we can help you. Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, we break even. That's nobody's goal ever. Right. But we just wanted to help them so bad, and we knew that we wouldn't be hurt. And so we went forward with it. But again, we had to get creative, because that number of what they owed and what we could pay just wasn't going to work when you run the formula and you start putting private money in and all this other stuff. It just didn't work.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the numbers do matter at the end of the day. But what I'm trying to get at is that if you talk to a seller, matter of fact, when we have a seller conversation with either myself or our acquisition people that we have, I don't even want them mentioning price until the very end of the call. So even if that comes into conversation, we say, listen, we'll get to price, but let me ask a few quick questions, because I'll be honest, Mr. Seller, I'm not even sure if this is going to work for us yet. I want to make sure this works for you first, and then also for us. And to be honest, the number is probably the easiest piece of the puzzle. So we'll get there. Let me find out about your situation. Tell me, why are you looking to sell? And going through everything, like, why don't you list it with a realtor? Why don't you just keep it? I mean, I almost have them kind of tell me all the reasons why they need to sell without even me like really trying to get it to pull out of them.
Why do you need me? And not some other exit strategy.
Absolutely. So if they're truly motivated and you try to figure out the issue of what's going on, that's what we talked about before, of just how you can get super creative. Yeah. And we haven't even talked price yet.
Right. But the price is the last piece of the puzzle.
Correct.
It genuinely is, because first there's a problem. There's an overlying problem. And maybe they owe something on the house, maybe they don't. Maybe they're behind on payments, maybe they're not. Maybe they owe more than the house is worth, and sometimes I mean, honestly, they could be motivated and there just isn't anything we can do to help.
That's true.
And sometimes we do have to walk away hat in hand wishing we could help, but there's just no strategy.
Right.
They're not behind on payments,
Right.
but they owe more than the house is worth. They can't really do a short sale till they're behind, and that's such a yucky place to be.
It
You're
is,
call me back when you're 90 days late.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go down that road. But
Right.
But in other cases, I mean, sometimes it's seller financing is the best option.
Right.
Right?
For sure.
And we've done plenty of those at
Oh,
0%.
my word. Absolutely. And that works for us, right?
Yeah.
But it also works for them because it gets them out of that real estate situation.
Yeah, because if you're going to sit on this house for another 8 months anyways, why not, but you're paying all the bills, why not transfer the bills to me?
Right.
You're still getting 0% on your money.
Right.
But you're going to get all your money in 8 months rather than today,
Right.
or 6 months, or whatever
Right.
it is. I don't know why I picked 8. Nothing's ever 8, Dan. Nothing is ever 8, Dan.
Here's the deal. The next deal you do, they're going to
I
need
know,
8 months or something, right?
They're usually 3 or 4.
Right.
But, you always say you go in with 6 and say,
Right.
it could be sooner.
Sure.
We had a seller that all he wanted to do was pay off his truck.
Yeah.
So we gave him enough money at closing so that he didn't have any more debt. He didn't
Yeah.
have a loan on his truck anymore.
Yeah.
That was really bothering him. Is $14,000.
Yeah.
So we went to closing with $14,000. He paid off his truck and he held the rest of it until we were finished flipping it. So
Yeah.
the only money we had to borrow was for the renovation.
Yeah.
At the closing day when we sold it, he got all of his money that he wanted up front, but we were able to give him a little bit more because then we didn't have to go out and get
Yeah.
private money.
Yeah.
And that left our private money for
Right.
a different deal.
Right.
And so that opportunity cost was also
Yeah.
taken into account.
But it came down to understanding what he needed, right? So he needed some money up
Yes.
front, so you were able to do that and structure the deal in such a manner. But then it also worked for you because you're able to come in with literally no money down other than just
Seriously.
the fixing it up, right? And then ultimately you stay in the position of where now you're on title, so you actually have legal
Yeah.
control over the property. So it's really a strong real estate investment strategy in that situation that everyone wins, but a majority of investors won't even get to that point because
Right.
they're so focused on, all right, you're at 150 and I'm at 100, and now I got to beat you up because the roof needs fixing, and it's like that gets you nowhere.
It does. Yeah. And here's the thing. Usually there's a happy meet in the middle.
There
right?
is.
We come up a little, they come
Sure.
down a little, but there's like some piece. I mean, we did that one on Washington
Yeah.
Street. Do you know he was so frustrated that he had to keep going over
Right.
to his mom and dad's old house and mow the grass. And when we went there, we're like, dude, your grass needs some mowing. He's like, I know, I'll be back this afternoon. I said, what if you didn't have to come back?
Right.
We can close in a week,
Yeah.
but we will mow the grass today.
Yeah, sure.
And he was like, you will? Yup. Not me, but that guy over
Right.
there will.
Yeah.
But we will get this grass mowed today. You're not coming back here.
Right.
And he was like, done.
Yeah,
Because money didn't matter to him.
absolutely.
But that grass was driving him.
But that was his pain point,
nuts.
right? You knew that was
Sure
the pain point, and you're like, well, what if we could remove that from you? And let's just assume
Simple
it's
things.
simple. I mean, you could pay someone $30 to $40 to either remove snow or grass, whatever,
Yeah.
in the summer or winter, depending where you live, and you pay, let's say you do that for 2 to 3 months, a few $100 out of your pocket.
It's nothing.
And that peace of mind is like, wow, you solved my problem.
Yeah.
So why that is beneficial is that now the dollar amount, which usually has some flexibility to your point.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're at a certain number, but they could probably go to a certain level. Now they're like, well, listen, you're serving me. Mm-hmm. It's not so important to me that I get top dollar. I just need to get this problem gone.
Yeah.
And sometimes the number they pick is somewhat ambiguous. They'd like to make that.
Right.
But they really don't know the reality of their situation, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you flexibility that you can really get some great deals by just serving first.
And it's funny because that house was perfectly cleaned out. It was like ready for market, except for it had one wall that was bad
Yeah.
too. And he had already signed a contract
That's
and put
right,
money
yeah.
down to have the company come back in. But now he has to sit and wait a month.
Right.
Because that's when they had him scheduled.
Yep.
And so he's sitting here thinking, I got to mow this grass for at least another month before I can list this house because it's got this problem. I was like, what if we reimburse you the money you put down
Yeah.
on that wall? We sit and wait. We get the wall fixed while we do some other renovations and we're mowing the grass. And he
Yep.
was like, I'm so done. Like, he
Sure.
was done.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. But
Yeah.
Dan, that was a really simple
Absolutely.
one.
Because
That wasn't even like
and that
out
was
of the
one in
park.
which you basically told them you can make better
I
money
did.
elsewhere, and you said, "Listen, I am not your best option."
I
But at the
did.
end of the day, they still chose you.
Yeah, I said I could list this for you. You can get,
Yeah.
30 grand more than my offer. My offer is where it is because I got to protect myself, and I
Right.
don't know, but I do believe I could list this
Sure.
and get you there. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
we'll just take your offer.
Yeah.
I literally said, are you sure?
Right.
But not mowing the grass, not having to
Right.
sit and wait, not dealing deal with it. And they left for vacation the day we closed. We closed in 1 week on a Friday, and they went from the closing table out of town.
Yeah.
And they were just super happy.
You made it easy. You made it simple. You kept good communication with them to let them know what's going on. And then you found the problem and you served them. So that's what we talk about, getting creative in these scenarios. I mean, it could be also things like they just don't know where to go, right? So it's like, I'd like to sell, but I've been here for 30 years. What does that next step look for me?
Yeah.
You know, what's plan B for me now that I'm moving out of this home that we've been here forever, you know? So it could be something as simple, whereas like you introduce them to opportunities, right? Depending on their scenario.
Let your network know, hey, I've got somebody looking for a rental, or somebody needs to move into a retirement community. They really want to be here, but they're full. Does anybody, does anybody have beds open in a place that's different? I mean, we've done all of these things.
And if it was like, let's say a situation where it's an adverse thing that they just don't have money, right? So they don't have a lot of money, or the property doesn't have a lot of equity in it, and there's not much you can pay them. Well, then you can introduce them to like local or state or county level agencies that help with housing assistance and things like that can help find them places to live, that can at least help them get back on their feet if it's a really bad situation that they just need to move out of. I mean, we had a student recently that the guy was living in just squalor. I mean, shouldn't have been living there. If the local municipality knew he was living there, they would have kicked him out. It was that bad. Yeah. So, he had to actually go and just say, here's how I can help and serve you. Yep. And through that's how he was able to get the deal. Because there's other investors knocking at the door that he just was like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. He's in a really bad situation. Yeah. But again, just offering him the solutions and a caring heart and and going over and above. I mean, you and I both have moved people.
Yes, absolutely.
They don't have friends, family, or children that live nearby. They can't move themselves. Getting a U-Haul is like a joke for them. Let us help you. Brett and I carried teak furniture. I don't ever want to own teak furniture because I moved it for someone else. But holy cow, we moved them into their retirement home, and they didn't have any kids. Right. All their nieces and nephews are out of town. Like, they had nobody. And we're like, listen, we'll buy your house and we'll help you move into your retirement community so that you don't have to worry about it. We're not going to pack, but we'll haul boxes out. We'll put them in our trailer and we'll drop them off for you. Yeah. And they were just like, that was their biggest problem, Dan. They didn't have a problem with the house. Like, they owned it, like everything was fine. Yeah. They didn't have a way to get out of it, and they really wanted to be in that retirement community, and a room opened up, which doesn't happen very often there. Right. And so that was, the one on Lindbergh 2 years ago. Those people,
I remember that. Absolutely, yes.
They wanted to close and then move out after, and you and I both know we don't ever want to do that. Right. I'm not going to close with people in it because I don't ever want to have to deal with evicting a previous owner. I don't want to do it. Right. So we waited till they said, well, can you wait to close until we find a place to move? Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll put it out and I'll let people know you're looking for a rental. Well, they found one on their own in an apartment community, but then they needed the first month's rent and security deposit. So we wrote them a non-refundable earnest money check for $5,000, which gave them their security first month and money to move because they were renting a U-Haul, and these guys weren't that old. They were like 50. They just were done being homeowners. And so I said, here, it's a non-refundable check. You can cash it. You can spend it. If we don't close, there's nothing we can do about it to get it back from you. It's right here in the contract, non-refundable. And they're like, well, how do we know that you guys are how do we know you guys are for real? I'm like, are you kidding? I just gave you a $5,000 non-refundable check. How do I know you're for real? And they were just ecstatic. So they went, they moved, they were all in and settled, and then we closed on the house. So sometimes it's just the simple things.
It is, and I think and I think what it comes down to, you're right. I think the other thing too is, you may be thinking, well, the most average people that teach you how to buy homes is there's a standard formula you go in. You got the Mayo, and you have your profit, repairs, and then your after repair value, and those numbers are important. But what I would really challenge you in your conversations with sellers is ask good questions.
That's the key.
What's going to happen when you sell the home? What happens if you don't sell the home, right? That's the other side of things. I'm not saying you have to sell to me. Right. But let's just say you don't sell to me. What next?
What's plan B?
What's plan B, right? What does that look like for you? And if they don't know, okay, well, what's preventing you from maybe not, sounds like you do need to sell, but what's holding you back? It's asking the questions because in very rare occasions, Are they going to just come out and really just blurt?
They don't.
Here's my problem. This is what I need you to solve for me. If you can solve this, sometimes that happens.
That's like 1 out of 20.
Right,
They can't wait to tell you.
So if you can ask some good questions, one, it's going to show that you care and that you want to serve them first.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, I'd also like to buy your house. And then through this process, like you mentioned earlier, Jack, you're going to flush out if they're truly motivated. And if they are motivated, now you really know their situation. Now you can start doing different things that can solve the puzzle that they haven't thought through yet. Because we have people, connections, and we know how to do these type of deals that allows us to serve them. And then when that's all done, say, great, well, let's talk a little bit about what you want for the property. It sounds like we can get you there, right?
Yep.
What do you need? And then really that conversation does not become confrontational.
Exactly.
It's like a family friend. Just like if you were to sell to a friend, you're going to give them a better deal than just some Joe Schmo, right?
Yeah.
So you've kind of earned that relationship because you showed what you have a heart for them to help them in their situation. The conversation just becomes automatic. Hey, in order for me to do this, here's kind of my price. Here's where I need to be. It sounds like something like that may work for you if we can get you there. And there still might be some back and forth, but I'm telling you, you're going to have people that will accept your offer. I mean, heck, we bought a property just recently off Henry Street in which there was multiple offers at the end of the day, but because of how we served the seller, they're like, Dan, we're going to take your offer. Even though we could have made more, we like working with you, and that's why we took your offer.
And that happens to both of us quite
Absolutely,
often. We're not the highest offer.
No.
But we're the best problem solver.
Correct.
With the most rapport.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But that's happened several times where, we get the house even though we know they have higher offers.
Right.
And that's the thing though. Like that's where you really feel good, right?
Yeah.
Because you know that you're solving their problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bigger problem, sometimes it's just grass,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
Mowing the grass. I mean, sometimes it's so simple, but you don't know unless you ask. So having those conversations,
absolutely,
and kind of like you said, sometimes you really got to draw it out of them. But that's where the real
I mean, if you're at a homeowner appointment and you get the price without knowing their problem, you lose. I mean, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you're gonna have a few people that maybe
that
it
was
just
gold
works out.
right there.
But if you
right.
if you jump to that number, like here's what I can pay, what are you wanting to sell for? If you have that type of dialogue before you even really understand their problem, someone else is going to come along and get it because they are able
Almost
to solve
every
that
time.
problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to just change something in your business that can have an immediate impact, start learning how to have those conversations and how to really solve problems.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, here's the value, here's the number. So it's really secondary, as we talked about earlier. It's that last piece of the puzzle.
The price isn't the biggest thing.
No.
Yeah, it's absolutely the last price. It's like, okay, so if I can do this and I can help you there and we can do this together, and here's the other thing. Sometimes this helps you come up with multiple offers.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, we can solve your problem like this, like that, or like that. Which one works the best for you? Those are my favorite.
Absolutely.
When I can give the multi-option, they forget that the fourth option is no deal.
Right.
You go.
Yeah.
You get out of here. Pound sand.
For sure.
It's like, do you want A, B, or C? They're like, and you never remind them that there's the option D where they don't do a deal with
Right.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But at that point, you've already helped them understand that they do need to sell. Mm-hmm. So these are really kind of the options. So really option D isn't even an option because they have to have a solution. And here you're providing multiple solutions depending on their situation. And I think the other thing is this, is when you go into it, yes, we're in a business. We're not in a charity, right? So we have to make a profit. We have to make a money. But at the end of the day, you have to treat people how you'd like. I think you mentioned it great earlier, how you would treat your grandma, right? And people can tell me to go pound sand and be rude to me and tell me off and whatever. I don't care anymore, right? I'm a little bit leathered that way. But when you're dealing with some of these other people, have compassion. Really understand what's going on. And if you come from a heart of service first, it is going to just be tenfold of the fruit that you're going to get from having that mentality first versus I need to get to my number.
Exactly. And then for that, there's only 2 reasons why you don't do the deal.
Right.
1, they weren't a motivated seller.
Right, yes.
Or 2, there was literally no way for you to solve their problem where everybody wins. You were going to hurt yourself by helping them.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are the only 2 ways that you don't close when this is the way you lead.
And sometimes, too, you find out, you do say, I'm not your best option. Here's someone else. And they go that route and it works for them. And I'm okay with it, too, because I sleep good at night because it's like, listen, I wasn't your best option. I don't want you to do that. Now, if you still choose me, that's great. But if not, that's fine, So I think hopefully, guys, in this podcast today, you can really see that price does not matter. I mean,
You
yes.
sound so wrong saying that.
I know, right? It's like
know,
people want to
great.
just like scold me over, but the reality is if you
It's
do
so
what we
true.
talked about in this podcast today, that will be just the natural flow of the conversation, and it won't be so much angst, because there's a lot of animosity when you start talking numbers.
Oh, you're
isn't
getting
it?
on the dance floor,
Yeah.
you're negotiating, you're stepping on toes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're dancing.
That's
you
probably
know.
one of the biggest fears I think
Yeah.
that a lot of newer investors have,
Right.
is just having that conversation about price.
Right. Because one is waltzing and the other one's breakdancing,
Yeah.
and nothing comes
Right.
together.
Right. So if you can take
Yep.
that animosity out of the equation by really understanding their situation
Yeah.
and solving that problem first, this is just like a natural. It's like
Done and done.
let's get it done.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
hopefully this served
So
you guys.
fun.
Hopefully this is helpful. This is the type of information that you can get coming to the local REIA, AppletonREIA.com. If you go there, you'll find the latest and greatest events. There's promotions, specials, discounts for days, locally and nationally, by becoming a member, and it's stupid cheap. Your 1-year membership, you will save that in probably the first month alone just going to Office Max and making copies. Let me tell
Yeah.
you. Stupid. Just dumb. Nonetheless, check it out. All the options are there. AppletonREIA.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. Jackie, this one's been good.
It was fun.
Awesome.
Good times.
Thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Appleton REIA Podcast. Have a good day. See ya. You've been listening to the Appleton REIA Podcast. For more information and other episodes, visit us at AppletonREIA.com.